The term ride the tiger is slang for having intercourse with an Asian person. I don't think it is. And I think that's slightly racist to say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, stuck here out of gas. There's a common phrase, which I'm sure you're aware, Andy, relates to ejaculating too quickly, ending his sexual experience before it even begins.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy and John here, and we discuss music. In particular, it's going to be a track today that John offers up to me to go off and listen to. I'm going to do just that, and then we're going to come back and chop it up a bit. John, who's the artist? What's the track?
So we're going back to Pixies.
Oh, okay.
Rightly so.
Excellent. And the track?
The track is River Euphrates, brackets, single version. We've had a couple of those recently, but for those in the know, will know what I'm talking about. And you don't know, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, I'll explain all later.
I was going to say, I assume that's going to be something we discuss on the other side of my listening and reaction experience. So let's get the ball rolling. I'll go off, give this thing a go, and come back, and you can tell me all about it.
Cowabunga.
That's it. Pixies. Now they're going to bring it down. Ride or right being chanted there. Yeah, this sounded right out of the gate, kind of House on Fire kind of intro, which doesn't really come as a surprise to me, given who we're listening to. And then to further underscore that kind of like reining it in to allow this refrain bit to shine. Interesting stuff. Really already digging the rhythm section in this track. They're working pretty well together thus far.
Stuck here out of gas,
Whiny guitar.
out here on the Gaza Strip, from driving too fast to 3 lanes. Ride a tire down, rev your feet, let's ride a tire down, ride a tire down, rev your feet, let's ride a tire down, ride a tire down, rev your feet, let's ride a tire down.
I think he's saying something about riding a tire down the Euphrates River. But God, he's saying Frank is really leaning into this like sneering kind of delivery with his vocals during this ride a tire. And I like it. I like it a lot. I wonder what the on face value, the idea of riding down the Euphrates River in a tire doesn't seem like it warrants this kind of almost vitriolic uh delivery. Now, sure, John will help fill in the gaps with that. I mean, it is an area of obviously, you know, decades and decades and decades and decades of war and conflict. So just that. Now, the idea of riding down the river in a tire, I don't understand, but just the very idea of that could warrant this kind of sneering approach. I like it a lot. I wonder perhaps if there is a bigger picture that hasn't yet come into focus for me. But yeah, digging that sound a lot. Another example of rhythm section. sorry, this light airy bit makes you totally forget about or it's just at least at the very least a very interesting juxtaposition to the snarling Black Francis to this light kind of airy ride or whatever they're saying. I assume ride now that I got the riding in a tire down the Euphrates bit. But yeah, very interesting juxtaposition. It's almost like the vocal version of the what they do musically with the loud, quiet, loud thing. It's a very interesting juxtaposition.
Dead sea make you float. One step from the salty wine. Dead sea make you choke. Tell friend that ride tire down river Euphrates. Ride tire down river Euphrates. Let's ride tire down river Euphrates. Let's ride tire down.
Like fading. Yeah, I really liked what Santiago is doing with the guitar, especially during that last musical bit. At times it sounded like he was going to fly off the rails. It sounded sometimes a little disjointed, but everything still held together, and the tone of the guitar was really great too during that. So I enjoyed what he was playing. I enjoyed how his guitar sounded. This rhythm section in this song, Kim, and I can't remember the drummer's name. Please forgive me. Um, I'm sitting here looking at this picture, and they both look like they're kind of parodying each other's stance, and it's funny because uh, they're of the same mind in how they pose for this photograph, and they were certainly of the same mind in how they work together in this track. So that's kind of an interesting little. I don't know if that's a happy accident or maybe this image was chosen because it was a cheeky little nod to how the rhythm section is working kind of hand in glove in this track, but it kind of made me chuckle because they are sounding great. There's some nice flourishes on the drums. Um, the bass was simple, but that low, persistent riff kind of kept everything moving. And I mean, look, Black Francis is gonna Black Francis, and he Black Francis all over this chorus. I mean, that kind of snarling, sneering approach, like he was spitting venom, um, was fabulous and intriguing. I mean, I can't really, given that I don't have an explanation for it, it only makes me uh, curious that much more about like why he chose to do that delivery, what the meaning is behind those lyrics he delivered. And then also that like the juxtaposition of that with a right. And it was just so like airy and lovely sounding, and less jagged and coarse, like his delivery in the chorus. So yeah, there's a lot to like about this song, but there certainly are some questions that I have. To me, this sounds like from all that I've heard from this band, which, is far less than what John has, but I think I've got a pretty good understanding that these guys kind of pioneered that sound of going from one extreme to the other, and making it all work. And I think this is kind of a classic example of that. There's a lot of that happening in this near 3.5 minutes, a short little number. But yeah, questions abound, particularly the lyrical content, what I mean, obviously, your mind goes to certain places when you're talking about this part of the world and its history. But I wonder what tact Black Francis is taking with these lyrics and this allusion to riding down the Euphrates River. Interesting stuff. If there's anybody that's going to know outside of the four people in this image, it's probably going to be John awaiting me on the other side. So let's get some answers and get back to him.
Titter ye not, he's back. So you've had a ride down the river Euphrates by Pixies. What do you think?
In a tire, no less, or at least I think that's what I heard.
There is some debate.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I was having my own internal debate as we were going through here. I was like, what are these? Especially during that the beginning with the well, it becomes like sort of the refrain where I was like, are they saying ride or right? In that portion as well. So I'm sure you'll get that all cleared up for me. And I think honestly, as the song progressed and I could focus on it a bit more as that portion appeared again, I think I got it right. But so upon pressing play, things immediately kick off. The drums and the bass punch the soundscape as the guitars kind of bend and pull over top them, creating this cacophony of sound. That's, nothing new for the Pixies. They're great at creating a really loud, bombastic sound that then kind of sort of like a turtle pulling its head back in its shell will do that for the next portion of the course, and that's kind of what we get in classic Pixies form. The sound soon shifts down, providing a contrast to the music from the opening salvo. And this bit is coupled with these chants of what sound like, as I mentioned, ride or right. Meanwhile, Kim is playing this very simple but persistent bass line that is contrasted with Santiago's whining, higher registered guitar motif. I assume that's him doing this and not Black Francis. So we get Black Francis, speak of the devil. He drops the first stanza of lyrics singing stuck here out of gas, out here on the Gaza Strip, from driving into fast, followed by what seems like a superfluous 2, 3, which then gives way to the more bombastic chorus portion of the song. I think the main gist of the chorus is this proposition to ride a tire down the Euphrates River. I think he said with fleeting confidence. As these lyrics during the chorus are delivered in an almost sneering fashion by your man Frank, which gives his voice character and the words a certain bite to them as well, though I am no closer to understanding why they warrant such an approach. It is hard not to notice and ponder the importance of the attitude injected into the chorus. So I notice it. It's there. I'm assuming it serves a purpose. Don't know what it is when you hold it up against riding down a Euphrates River in a tire. Also, I have to say that the drums on this track are fabulous. Really, the rhythm section as a whole is like just alive in this one. Is both parties are working really, really well together to create this sound, which is kind of perfect when it's held up against this static thumbnail photograph of the band, because Santiago and Frank are kind of doing their thing, but the other two are almost parroting each other in their pose, which is like a perfect symbol for how they sound in this track together. So I don't know if whoever uploaded it happened to pick this photo on purpose. If they did, hats off to you, because it is a lovely little visual tie-in to the sound that the two are building together throughout this track. The chorus wraps up and we get these terrific bits of like sonic transmissions from the guitar as the song moves back into that portion from the beginning. The next verse, the guitars cut out, save for some kind of like high-pitched sounds that are shot in from the guitar, which allows for Kim's bass to feature more prevalently in this iteration of the verse. Back to the chorus we go with more of Frank's venom-spitting delivery coupled with the raucous music. This gives way to Kim's bass and the drums holding down the rhythms as the guitar whines and descends for a moment. The guitars and the repeated refrain return. This time, the guitar slides between fluid and a little disjointed and distorted, all while we get treated to more of the rides. And I gotta say, the way the rides are delivered from just a vocal standpoint are really airy and clear and pristine. And again, ad nauseum, we juxtapose one portion of a song to another. That purity held up against the jagged, deformed delivery of your man in the chorus is an interesting one. Not foreign an approach for these guys, but still worth noting. And again, only makes me think, what is the heft behind this chorus that from just a word, just if you take the words on paper, don't mean a whole lot, but when you add this that Black Francis has, it feels like it should mean more than what they are at face value. So yeah, this we get more of the rides before the band hits one like last bombastic flourish to kind of punctuate the ending of the track. Yeah, I enjoyed this one. And the rhythm section was great, as I've mentioned a few times. Santiago's guitar work was really awesome in this as well, and grew on me as the track went on. And I found Black Francis's delivery to be particularly intriguing during the choruses with that snarling tone that he added. But what I'd love to know, and I've mentioned just a moment ago, is what warranted that approach, and what the song's larger meaning or statement was, since that might educate the former. Like, if I knew what the song was about, maybe that might understand why he had that vocal approach in the chorus. All in all, though, it had exactly what I expected from the Pixies, and I found it really, really enjoyable. But I've got questions, obviously. I think I've articulated them well enough. Can you help me understand exactly what this track is about, John?
Maybe not.
Okay.
So,
Won't hold my breath.
just to mention previously, we have listened to a few Pixies tracks. So, on Into the Music, I gave you a gigantic acoustic version live at the folk festival. And then on this channel, I gave you number 13, Baby. And also we had Is She Weird, which was a viewer's request. So I'll put this together as a playlist, drop this one in as well, and you can go back and look at the previous ones and a bit more about the band and all that sort of stuff. I'll just focus on this particular album and time. So this track is from the superlative album Surferosa, 1988, produced and engineered by Steve Albini. I may have mentioned before, but this album is my second favorite album of all time, just behind the White Album by the Beatles. So personnel that we've already mentioned, but just to clarify, Black Francis, vocals, rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar, Kim Deal, bass vocals, and credited on the album as Mrs. John Murphy, Joey Santiago, lead guitar, and David Loverin, drums. Also, Steve Albini, production and audio engineering, and Simon LaBelstier and Vaughan Oliver, in particular, cover image and all the album booklet imagery, etc. Interesting enough, I stumbled across a podcast series called Life of the Record, which I texted you about because it has some really interesting stuff, and I would encourage our viewers to check it out if you can. Each episode is quite hefty. I mean, they almost talk as long as we do. Actually, longer. But they'll go on about just a particular seminal album. And it's done by the people who are involved, like band members or producers or whatever. So it's not just someone postulating about it. It's actual people there who made it happen. And like, Crazy Rhythms by the Feelies is one I've downloaded. This album as well, Surferosa, and others as well. Really, Superfuzz Big Muff as well by Mudhoney. And there's loads of others. So really interesting. As I texted, because there's one done by Manchester Orchestra, which I know that young Andy would love to get his teeth into. Yeah. On this, so some really interesting things from this. So the Surferosa episode is very interesting. So it features Joey Santiago, David Lovering, and Steve Albini. Ooh, hiss. Anyway, his memories in particular seem to have undergone a certain revisionist quality.
It's funny, John, because when you were telling me about it, I was like, it's so great to get the stories from the horse's mouth rather than these peripheral characters who might not have the facts straight. But it's so right. Like, so many of these artists will rewrite their own history and stuff, so it all becomes myth. this point.
Yeah, I perhaps have a slight overreaction to Steve Albini, and that's I will go into explain. But just give context. In 1991, as Pixies were recording their last album before they split for the first time, Trompe le Monde, Albini told the fan magazine Forced Exposure that Surfer Rosa was, in quotes, a patchwork pinch loaf from a band who at their top dollar best are blandly entertaining college rock. And he also said the band, their willingness to be guided by their manager, their record company, and their producers is unparalleled. Never have I seen four cows more anxious to be led around by their nose rings.
Damn.
Yeah. So in 2005, Albini apologized for remarks, saying, to this day, I regret having done it. I don't think that I regarded the band as significantly as I should have. And in 2023, he said Surfer Rosa was a better record than I thought it was at the time. He was quoted as well somewhere else as saying that he just thought the album was absolutely bang on average, and you couldn't see this band making a mark of any significance anywhere. In an interview for Live for the Record podcast, I've only listened to half of it because it is an hour and 48 minutes, and I only stumbled across it less than 2 days ago. But so I'm looking forward to this bit. I haven't got to this yet, but he goes on to say, I wrote some rather glib and unflattering things about the Pixies, taking in all his suggestions without question in a fanzine in the immediate aftermath of that record, and I'm ashamed of the way I treated them. They didn't deserve that. I will say this about Albini. This isn't about Albini. This is about Pixies. But people rate about Big Black. I think they are a bang on average. He developed a certain sound. I'll give him that. And he is a really good engineer. But he got fucking lucky producing this band, not the other way around. But anyway, that's all I'll say. Having said that, what you just listened to wasn't produced by Steve Albini. So Gigantic, who we've listened to before, was the only single to be taken from Surfer Rosa, and that and its B-side, River Euphrates, was re-recorded with producer Gil Norton at Blackwing Studios in London in early May 1988 while they were on a European tour. Norton would then produce the following album, Doolittle, as well. So the original album version came in at 2 minutes 31, and it didn't have extra rides, and it didn't have that guitar parts at the end of the track.
Right, which I thought was one of the best, from a musical standpoint, one of the most interesting
really
parts
nice.
of the song.
The remix single was well met with critics, but failed to sell, and spent just 1 week at the dizzying heights of number 93 on the UK singles charts. Now, 93 in USA charts is, fairly, in the UK, it means there's about 10 copies sold. I mean, it really is an inspiring. I didn't write this down, but they were talking about how his approach. Joey Santiago is very sort of self-depreciating about his work. And he just said he kept it simple at times, but really some nice. He said he was bending notes all the way through this to get. It was like a spiral going upwards and then back down again. In terms of the guitar work, really interesting. What they did was when they recorded the album, they used their gigging amps, and he had this. And I'm not familiar with amps. I'm familiar with one they mentioned, which is Marshall, but he had a PV amp. He said it was small and bullshitty, and they wanted it to sound a bit more crunchy. They would use that and then put it through various things. And if they wanted to sound a bit sort of brighter or bigger, they'll put it through a Marshall, which they hired for the 10 days in the studio for Surfer Rosa. So they did both for this song and then put some of them together. So you get almost like two guitar sounds doing the same thing. And that's what it is. It's the different amps. And David Lovering said of this song that he loved this song so much, but whenever Black Francis and Kim start singing Ride, 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 he says, that very rarely are they on the timings. And so he has to really count loudly in his head. 1, 2, 3, 4, so he doesn't lose the time. So if he starts listening to them singing, it goes all over. Yeah. He said the number of times playing live, he says you can't get back. So they've had to stop the song and go on to something else and then come back to it later in the gig because it's just you can't go back. But yeah, really interesting, really interesting. Yeah. So we'll go over the lyrics. Kim and then Black Francis join in. Ride, 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 ride. Stuck here out of gas. Out here on the Gaza Strip. From driving in too fast. 2, 3. Let's ride a tire down River Euphrates. Let's ride a tire. Let's ride a tire down River Euphrates. Let's ride a tire. Ride a tire down River Euphrates. Let's ride a tire down. Ride, 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 ride. You get the picture. Dead Sea, make me float. One sip from the salty wine. Dead Sea, make you choke. 2, 3. Let's ride a tire down River Euphrates. Ride a tire. Let's ride a tire. Ride, hey, tire. And that's when the album version ends. But here it continues on with that guitar break with the sonics and the extra rides coming in over the top. About another minute. So on the lyrics, there is no official printed version anywhere. However, many fans have suggested that it is Ride a Tiger. And to be fair, only a couple of times it does sound like he almost says tiger. But I think that is because of Black Francis' unique delivery system. And you mentioned about what it all means in terms of why he's singing like that. I think you can put it down to one word, and that is psychosis. He's just a mentalist, and he's actually one of the nicest guys as well when he's not performing. But particularly Surfer Rose and a little bit too little, absolute fucking nutcase, brilliant. And some songs are really interesting and deep sort of points of view. Others are just what they are, and this is run out of gas, so we'll ride a tire down the river instead.
Yeah, that's exactly that's what I was going to say. Since you said that there's no real meaning behind it. It was just technique choice. Thinking, okay, well, you ride your car in, it breaks down, you pop the tires off, you get in the inner tube, and you you just continue your travels. Okay.
However, the idea posited by some fans is that the idea that the tiger, rather than tire, is a play on the river Tigris, which joined with the Euphrates makes up the largest river system in West Asia, which flows into the Persian Gulf. Or is that the Israeli Gulf now? Who knows? Here's a little sample of some of the fans' logic on one of the websites, which is I thought this fascinating. And I mean, talk about anyway. First and foremost, the actual lyric to this song is "Ride the Tiger," not tire, spelt wrong, or tire, spelt correctly, British. Brackets. This lyrical correction comes directly from the Pixies official website, pixiesmusic.com. See for yourself. So I did, and there are no lyrics on pixiesmusic.com, so that's just fantasy. Someone's put it there to make themselves look important. Although there are many geographical references, they aren't meant to be taken in a literal sense. They are rather metaphors and play on words, hyphenated. The term ride the tiger is slang for having intercourse with an Asian person. I don't think it is. And I think that's slightly racist to say that. Anyway, stuck here out of gas. There's a common phrase, which I'm sure you're aware, Andy, relates to ejaculating too quickly, ending his sexual experience before it even begins. So that's what stuck here out of gas means.
As flattered as I am that you would think enough about me in those scenarios to think that I might commiserate with that or understand it. That's another turn of phrase. I had, along with Ride the Tiger.
Every day's a school day here at the Audiophiles. There's another one you'll love. The Gaza Strip is then most likely a reference to his Asian lover's pubic hair. Of course. What else could it be?
Jesus Christ.
From this point on, it is pretty apparent that the Dead Sea and choking on the salty ride lyric is a reference to his semen. I'll stop there.
Do you think this is
the level of madness?
Do you think this is sincere? Do you think this is one big mistake post that they're having?
No, absolutely sincere.
The problem is the benefit of the doubt. I almost did.
The problem is that you do get these sort of like sort of fairly gritty biblical references on a lot of Pixies songs
Mhm.
that do have a lot of sexual tension and violence and weird shit happening in them from the mind of Black Francis. You know,
Yeah.
Cactus is a guy in a prison cell who wants his girlfriend to send him her dress, but she has to take it off when she's sweaty, then stick her hands in cactus leaves to get them bloody and then wipe the blood on the dress, then send it to him. So yeah, very specific kind of weirdness. And that
Yeah.
I'm not making that up, that is the lyrics, you know. So you kind of understand, but I mean, they're just trying to, all right, that definitely means that, you know, it's just hilarious. So that's the kind of fan madness, which I'm sure you get with other bands as well all around the place, you know. But yeah, that's the Pixies flavor of fan madness there. Anyway, back to reality. At the end of 1988, Surfer Rosa was named one of the year's best albums on the English Critics' year-end list. It didn't really register in America at that time. Independent music magazines, Melody Maker and Sounds named Surfer Rosa as their album of the year. A number of musical magazines have since positioned Surfer Rosa as one of the quintessential alternative rock records of the 80s. The album has appeared on several all-time best album lists and is consistently placed as one of the best albums of the 80s in any genre. It also features in the book 1001 albums you must hear before you must die. And oh, what a page! What a page! So here it is, Surfer Rosa. Next to it is There Ain't My Bloody Valentine. So fantastic. We go this way. Happy Monday's bummed. The go between 16 Lovers Lane, Cowboy Junkies, and Tracy Chapman's eponymous album. Fantastic. R.E.M. Green. And if we go the other way, as is rumored, Dinosaur Jr., Bug. American Music Club, California. That's an interesting album. And Morrissey, hey, I know it's one of your favorites. And then we get Daydream Nation by Sonic Youth and Life's Too Good by the Sugar Cubes. What a time to be alive. Yeah, I was 18. Fantastic. Never get them years back. So both Surfer Rosa and, to be fair, Steve Albini's production of the album have been influential on alternative rock and on grunge in particular. Nirvana's Kurt Cobain cited Surfer Rosa as the basis for Nevermind songwriting. When he first held the album, Kurt Cobain discovered a template for the mix of the heavy noise and pop that he was aiming to achieve. Cobain listed Surfer Rosa as one of the top 50 albums he thought was most influential to Nirvana's sound in his journal. Cobain hired Albini to produce Nirvana's 1993 album In Utero, primarily because of his contribution to Surfer Rosa. Smashing Pumpkins' Billy Corgan described Surfer Rosa as the one that made me go, holy shit, it was so fresh. It rocked without being lame. Thanks, Billy. Corgan was impressed by the album's drum sound and acknowledged that Smashing Pumpkins used to study the record for its technical elements. And PJ Harvey said that Surfer Rosa, quotes, blew my mind, and that she immediately went to track down Steve Albini. And it wasn't to kill him, it was to hire him for the album Rid of Me. And so some songs that we heard from that. And Ivo Watts Russell, who's head honcho at 4AD, and it was him that had the idea of putting together Pixies and Steve Albini, recalled, I remember that when I first heard Surfer Rosa, thinking, I didn't know that the Pixies could sound like The Fall. That was my immediate reaction. In other words, incredibly raw. So there you go. Little insight to one of my favorite songs off that album, my favorite albums. They were saying that it's harder to actually spot the influences that created the Pixies sound, as opposed to the bands after them. You know, there is a bit of there's a bit of Velvet Underground in there, obviously, and there's some other stuff as well. But in terms of what they created, that Quite Loud, again, wasn't unique, but they kind of perfected it within an alternative rock sort of scenario. Steve Albini did say on the podcast, the bit that I listened to, that Kim Deal was one of the people he most respected in the music business. He did say that she was the best musician out of the bunch, and that she played bass. It wasn't quite beneath her, but she just did it because it was easy. She's a real perfectionist in everything she does, and also he rates her voice as one of the best voices he's ever heard as well. He says that when she's singing, you can almost hear that she's smiling. There's a very pure quality to her voice. And it says he pointed out what you did as well, that the contrast between her and Black Francis is what makes it work so well. And so did Joey Santiago mentioned it as well. So yeah, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, the last bit of his opinion, which I shouldn't take issue with because no opinion is wrong, is that like, I don't take issue with his the voice, but I always assumed, and maybe it's just my opinion coming through that I just thought was an understood, implied, kind of fact about the band was that for as big of a personality as Black Francis is, and he is kind of the mind of like how things go, or was my supposition, was that Santiago was kind of the ace in the hole when it came to the best pure musician in the band. And I guess I don't know if it's blowing up in my face, but here I am given a reason to rethink that or reevaluate that. But when I listen to them, I think the most intricate bits of music that's coming from a Pixie song is often provided by him.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Interestingly, he's not classically trained at all; he's completely self-taught. So the things he does and makes up are fairly unique because of that. I think when she arrived at the band, from what I can remember reading, that she didn't know how to play the bass, and learnt it on the job, as it were. But according to Steve Albini, she's the one who said the clearest vision, and particularly on the breeder stuff, it would take weeks, months, years, but to get that right. But as soon as it got correct, it was done and dusted. That's what he was talking about. I don't know. That's his opinion. It's just interesting to hear him say that.
Exactly.
And I do think there was that tension that there wasn't enough of her creative input, which is one of the reasons, that and the drugs, why she left, and then hey ho, she goes off and does Breeders straight away and is just up and running, bit kind of like, it's not the same thing, but George Harrison, and then off he goes, and All Things Must Pass, and there's an amazing bunch of songs that he already had, in the stable ready to go, and she's the same thing, I think. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's not you never get the truth, will you? But that's what his point of view was. Anyway, I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank you,
folks out there. Please hit the like button and tell us what you think. Don't question it, just hit the like button, and then tell us what you think about this track, this album. As I say, it's right up there for me. It's that perfect sort of combination of pre-grunge. There's that sort of gnarly punkness and college rock and all sorts of other stuff going on, and then a really fascinating psychotic lead man, which is what you it's perfect for that sort of mood and music, So yeah, please, love to hear what you think. And if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? All this and more besides could be wanging its way into your eardrums Monday through Friday, each week and most months. So that being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we will see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.